Welcome back to the channel. God bless you. Quick video today, just kind of a little bit of a recap on the SBC convention, and I guess the PCA convention as well, although I didn't really pay too much attention to that, even though I do consider myself a Westminster guy. I would subscribe to the Westminster Confession. You know, I don't go to a Presbyterian church, so I mean, can I really even call myself Presbyterian? I don't know. My brother's Presbyterian, but anyway. That being said, just a quick recap. You know, there were some good things that came out of the SBC convention, much to my surprise. But I did want to give a little bit of analysis, a little bit of a warning to the people that are celebrating a little bit too much. And not that I don't want you to celebrate. I do want you to celebrate. But I want you to celebrate with your eyes open, because the work is not even close to being done. So enjoy it. Enjoy the fact that Saddleback was launched into outer space. Enjoy the fact that that woman with the rainbow thing, Fern Creek or whatever, she was launched into outer space. Enjoy it, because it's a good thing. That's a very solid, good thing. Enjoy the fact that Albert Mohler was the guy that was dropping bombs on Rick Warren. Enjoy it. That's a good thing-ish. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. But one thing I did want to draw your attention to is how much angst the leadership of the SBC is feeling about Twitter. You know, there were some comments about posting on Twitter and, you know, that kind of thing, and how it's really, really bad, and they're unaccountable, they're anonymous, you know, things like that. And I guess this guy here, who even knows who he is, who cares, but he's one of the leaders of the SBC, you know, friends with J.D. Greear, stuff like that. And he even dedicated some sermon time where he's supposed to be preaching the words of God to talk about all his political enemies that I guess they post too much. And here's a quotation from the sermon. "Are we going to be led by people who post more than they pray?" Now, I want to just caution you. This is intended to sound very pious. You know, it's intended to say, look, those guys, they're all about this social media, this culture war, and they don't even pray. They're not even spiritual. We're the spiritual ones. You know, we care about the reality of the SBC. That's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to kind of create this false dichotomy about the people that are, I guess, perceived enemies of the leadership of the SBC. And, look, if you're going to dedicate sermon time to this, I mean, I guess that's up to you. I think it's pretty bad form to be attacking your political enemies from the pulpit. I mean, that just doesn't make much sense to me. But if you want to do it, I'm not going to say it's evil or it's a sin or something like that. But what I want you to know here is that this is all complete nonsense. This is textbook projection. They do this all the time, and instantly people saw J.D. Greear post this, and it's like, you're posting on Twitter a criticism of people who post on Twitter. Like, it just doesn't make any sense at all. And again, the implication here is these people aren't spiritual. They're not praying. They actually don't care. They're just trying to win a social media war. And I think they're doing this because they recognize that they are losing the social media war. They're getting their teeth kicked in. Now, here's the thing, like social media, people like to dog it and stuff like that. That's not real life. It doesn't really matter. Twitter's not real life. And that's not true. Twitter is part of real life, obviously, right? It's obviously part of real life. But it is true, though, that Twitter is not enough. But what Twitter and social media is good for, and I include YouTube in this, I include all of the social media, even the ones I don't use in this, it's really good for kind of establishing the boundaries of what's allowed to be talked about, the Overton window, whatever you want to call it. You know, there are things that I started saying years ago that, you know, people would like lose their minds when I said it. They would clutch their pearls. For example, like Democrats should be excommunicated from the church, or I'm sorry, church disciplined, leading eventually to excommunication if they don't repent. That was unheard of back when I was saying it, but it's a lot more common now. And I think that social media, I'm not taking credit for that. A lot of people were saying that kind of stuff. But those are conversations that the parameters of what's allowed to be talked about oftentimes are set online. But it's not enough, though, because you have to have interpersonal relationships as well. You have to have real friends. You have to have real communities, real churches that you're talking to and things like that. But as far as the parameters of what's allowed and what's unheard of and what clutches pearls and what is okay, a lot of that is set online, and that's the reality, and they know it. This is the thing. As much as they say they don't believe that, they know it, and that is why he dedicated time from a sermon where, again, he's supposed to be preaching the words of God. He dedicated time in a sermon to talk about how naughty Twitter is. I heard that this was done also in the PCA. I don't know if it was a sermon, but I heard that, again, from the platform, there was time dedicated to talking about how evil Twitter is and stuff like that, because there's two reasons for that. One, they know it's important, so don't ever let them lie to you and say it's not real life, it's not important. It is important. They're getting their teeth kicked in, and they know it. And they can't control it. Because, and there's stuff coming out about some of the shenanigans going on with the platform and like microphones mysteriously being turned off at opportune times for the leadership and stuff like that. They can control what happens at the circus show of the SBC convention. What they can't control is what goes on social media. Because I can tell you that Bart Barber said something stupid or idiotic, and I can make fun of him and make him look like a complete idiot because he's one of the biggest doofuses out there, obviously. And I'm just a nobody. But I can make your perception of Bart Barber change based on his, quite frankly, his shadiness, his lies, his buffoonery, and they can't control what you see on social media. So they're very worried about that because the way they usually operate is in places that are highly controlled, like the SBC convention, which again, in my opinion, is primarily theater. It's primarily a circus, and they control it, and they control it very well. They're very good at it. But they can't control Twitter, and Twitter is where they're getting their teeth kicked in, and Twitter is the reason why there was some progress made at the SBC convention this year. And again, it's progress, but I want to caution you because it's really kind of it's a double-edged sword kind of progress. Because if you see what's happened here, there was a stand taken on women pastors. That is a very good thing, and I'm celebrating that with you guys because that is huge, man. That's huge. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting them to cave on this, and if they didn't cave, I was expecting it to be a lot closer. It was a pretty decisive victory to stand against feminism in the SBC. At least this version of it. But I want you to be careful because look at who was kind of leading the charge here, right? It wasn't like this conservative base, you know what I mean, based people. It was 9 Marks, pretty liberal. It was Al Mohler, pretty woke. And these guys have now taken a stand, and they've kind of earned some conservative bona fides through this stand. 9 Marks and Al Mohler come out of this looking pretty conservative. And the reality is they're not. They're weasels. They're weasels. Don't forget, 9 Marks was out there marching with Black Lives Matter while their churches were shut down. Don't forget, Al Mohler's launching conservatives into outer space at his seminary and replacing them with liberals. Don't forget those things. I'm not saying you can't work with them on certain things. That is totally fine. You want to work with Al Mohler on the defense against feminism in the church, go ahead and work with him. But work with him with your eyes wide open, ready to get stabbed in the back when it comes to the woke stuff, when it comes to the race stuff, because he is not trustworthy in general on that stuff. Looks like he's come through on the feminism, and that is great. I'm not taking anything away from him. I'm not taking anything away from 9 Marks when it comes to that. I'm grateful that they were on the right side of this very important, very easy, obvious issue. When it comes to the woke stuff, they have done nothing differently. They are just as woke and liberal on those things as they always have been. Well, I guess maybe not always, because some of these guys, they kind of change with the winds kind of thing. But at least, as far as the Summer of Love back in the, when St. George Floyd was murdered, by overdosing on fentanyl. Anyway, that being said, so celebrate. It's all good. Twitter, this is funny, man. The Twitter stuff it just gets me because it's so obvious we're kicking their teeth in. And honestly, G3 experienced a little bit of this too. And if you've noticed, G3 has kind of calmed down. And I'm grateful because I don't want to fight G3. G3's not my enemies. G3 aren't my political enemies. G3 aren't bad guys. I like G3. But they got their teeth kicked in on Twitter. And it certainly seems like they've learned their lesson. because they stopped doing what they're doing. Look, they're not necessarily ever going to be Christian nationalists, and I've always said this entire fight, this entire debate, I don't need you to be Christian nationalists. I just need you to stop saying stupid stuff online about Christian nationalism. That's all I need you to do. And it certainly seems like they've stopped. And so we can be friends. I don't have to attack them. They learned their lesson. SBC has not. SBC has not. They know that Twitter is a very, and I'm using Twitter just as a social media, placeholder. So social media is very important. They're getting their teeth kicked in on social media. They can't control social media. So their last-ditch desperate attempt is to say,
social media is bad. It's really bad. And all those people that are on social media, they're not even praying. They're posting more than they pray.
Well, this is hilarious because some lady, I guess it's two ladies, did a little research. You gotta love this. Steadfast women here. I'm not usually the kind to share, too much about what women say because I don't want them to be the lightning rod. You know what I mean? But these seem like they're anonymous, so I'm okay with this. So anyway, this Twitter account did some research about who's posting on social media, and they make a great point, at least initially. It doesn't matter if you could post 20 times a day on Twitter and it says nothing about if you're praying or not. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't, but the amount of times you post on Twitter actually has nothing to do with how much you're praying. So to try to poison the well there and say people that are posting on Twitter, they're evil. They don't even pray. They might not even be Christian because they're posting more than they pray. That's the implication. But anyway, she did a little research and found out that if you look at just the presidents, and I bet you this research would hold in general as well. When you look at the regime and the platform SBC leaders, they post like, the Gospel Coalition type. These people post on social media all the time. It's just all the time. And again, if you want to post on social, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with posting on social media. It doesn't say anything about your prayer life. But anyway, here's the research. She said, look, the last presidents, SBC presidents and candidates, if you go based on their posting average, it's always flip-flop. So if you go by this sermon, you would think Mike Stone must be posting on social media so much because he doesn't even have time to pray. In actuality, Bart Barber tweets 10 times a day. Mike Stone tweets less than 1 time a day, less than half a time a day, less than a quarter of a time a day, 0.24 tweets per day, compared to Bart Barber's 10 tweets a day. You go to the last guy, Tom Askell. Tom Askell's a little bit more active on social media. And by the way, a lot of people assume, and I think rightly, that this sermon where he was saying, oh, they don't even pray, it's about Tom Askell. Tom Askell tweets a little over 4 times a day. And again, Bart Barber, over 10 times a day. Again, Mike Stone versus Ed Litton. Ed Litton is over there for over 4 times a day. Mike Stone, less than a quarter times a day. J.D. Greer, 3 times a day. His opponent, less than half a time a day. Steve Gaines, 5 times a day. J.D. Greer, again, 3 times a day. This has nothing to do with anything. Nothing. And so J.D. Greer here said, oh, this is just fire. This sermon, he's killing it. Are we going to be led by people who post more than they pray? Well, it turns out every presidential candidate for the last 4 years, from the regime side, from the J.D. Greer side, from the woke side, from the liberal side, from the leadership side, posts more than the opposition, often by a factor of 5 or more, sometimes by a factor of 20 or more, including J.D. Greer. Are we going to be led by people who post more than they pray? Well, it certainly seems like we're already being led by people who post an awful lot. Again, this has nothing to do with their prayer life, but they have to make it seem bad because they're losing on Twitter. They can't control it. They can't do the shenanigans with the platform. They can't just, kind of slide in a new resolution about immigration at the last minute and vote on it real quick so nobody knows what's going on. They can't do the shenanigans that they do on their controlled platforms. There's so much corruption in the SBC. It's unbelievable. But they can't do that on Twitter because they don't control Twitter. And so they're very scared of it. And so they need to make it seem unspiritual. They need to make it seem bad, even though they're trying desperately to control the narrative on Twitter. And you can tell that by how often they post. You can tell that by what they do on Twitter. They're desperate to control Twitter. They can't. They're losing. They're getting their teeth kicked in every single day out here on Twitter. And so what their alternate plan is to make it seem illegitimate. Guys, we're making it happen. We are making it happen. Here's something else I wanted to say, too. This is just a recommendation to SBC people. Yes, there's corruption in the SBC. There's platform shenanigans. There's all kinds of stuff. That's the game, guys. That's the game. I said in a private message to somebody that this parliamentary stuff, like the cloak and dagger kind of back office kind of things that happen in these organizations like the PCA General Assembly, the SBC Convention, I have no taste for that stuff. I can't do that kind of stuff. I find it disgusting. I find it distasteful. I don't want to participate in that kind of stuff. I just like straight up fights. You know what I mean? I'd rather be in a street fight and, be punching someone and, getting punched myself than to be doing like back rooms, like cloak and dagger type deals. That's just my personality, right? I like it straight up. I'm like Han Solo. I prefer a straight fight as opposed to all this sneaking around. But some people love that. And here's the thing, guys. Don't complain about the platform shenanigans. Embrace them and get good at them. That's what I say. Get good. That's the game. It's shady and it's sneaky. Here's some suggestions. I think you guys need some spies. I think you guys need some spies that know they're spies, that kind of worm their way into some of these circles and get some behind-the-scenes information and pretend to be part of it but not really be part of it. I think you need some spies to get into some of these rooms that make these decisions and stuff like that. And it's going to be deep cover. It's going to be deep cover, long-term, long-con spies, and then you got to pick your spots. When you find something that you can use, you got to pick your right spot because it's going to be a waste of an operation. You got to be like Donnie Brasco, where he's embedded in the organization, and eventually he gets to be very close with the boss and the underboss and all that kind of stuff. You guys need some of that in the SBC, and you might think, well, that's not being very honest. Listen, that's the game. That's the game. You can in a war, you can have spies. In a war, you can use deception. That's the game. If you are going to beat this, it's not enough to be like, oh, there's platform shenanigans. People don't care. People don't care that there's platform shenanigans. That's the game you're playing. You can expose it if you want, but you also need some people in there. You need to embed you need some Donnie Brascos. The SBC needs a Donnie Brasco. And if you don't know who Donnie Brasco is, look it up on Wikipedia. He was a guy, he was an undercover spy who got embedded in the mafia in New York and Brooklyn, and he got all the way to the top, essentially. Donnie Brasco. There's a movie based on Donnie Brasco. It's a good movie, too. Good movie. Anyway, that's what you guys need to do, guys. You got to get good. And if you're not comfortable with the spy stuff, then you got to figure out some other parliamentary moves to use. Listen, I can't help you with that. I don't like that stuff. But you got to do it, man. You got to get good. We're winning the war on Twitter, and that is great. It's wonderful, and we got to keep doing that. We got to keep hammering away at that. We can't get outflanked by the likes of Al Mohler and 9 Marks. You can't trust those guys. You can work with them on this, but don't trust them because they're not trustworthy. Don't get outflanked. Keep winning the war on Twitter. And then you guys need to figure out how to get good at all the parliamentary kind of shenanigans, the platform shenanigans. Don't complain about it. Get good. I hope you found this video helpful. God bless.